What's going on, creators? Yeah, I just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Yeah, today I just want to talk a little bit about just mental diets and really focusing your attention on information and people and circumstances that feel good, and not getting stuck in these hopeless spells, and just living your life and enjoying it. So a big part of it is holding on to positive states right now in the present moment and not getting lost in your mind throughout the entire day, spinning out narratives and stories. It's so easy to do that, but catching that faster and faster, I feel like, is really important, especially when you start making that connection of your thoughts and your emotions and your faith start having a dramatic impact on your experience of reality, because it starts to function like a mirror. As you look out, you start to really see yourself reflected back in your life situations, circumstances, events, all these things. You start seeing these patterns start to happen. And so taking those patterns and being able to, for one, start to change those to stop unconsciously creating patterns that aren't serving you anymore, is a big first step. But it's also about your emotional state of being too, because if maybe if you're just getting into the law of attraction, or you've seen The Secret or something, where it's like, your thoughts becoming things, and so it's like, oh, I can't have a bad thought because it's going to manifest and this and that. Realize that your thoughts are representing of the state that you're in, and if you're in a state of fear, it's not uncommon then to have fearful thoughts, and so start to shift into a more loving state of consciousness, by here, I think I wrote this down. It's like, what would it feel like to ascend? What would it feel like to be in heaven right now? What would it feel like to not have any problems? So many times when we get desires, those desires are basically showing us what we believe ourselves not to be. So it's like, if you have a desire to eat something, it's like it's showing you that you're lacking food or some nutrition. So any of these desires where you're feeling it, and it's like, oh, I'm without that, or oh, wouldn't it be nice if this was true? Start putting yourself in. It's already that way. It's like you're already blessed. You can be, do, or have anything. God's already given it to you. God is with you, and God's going to make it happen. You just have to be still and enjoy it. As you believe that, it'll start to reflect more and more so. And the thing of it is, it's like, the resistance patterns that come up are been boiling in your consciousness. And so when those emerge, to look at them, see if it's serving you, this belief. A lot of times you start feeling bad, and it's like, oh, well, that's just guilt. I'm not guilty. That I used to be guilty, but the new man, the new creation that I am, is innocent. I'm no longer guilty. I'm saved. I'm not gonna worry about that anymore. God's with me, God's for me, and God takes pleasure in prospering me. And it's like you start taking these promises of God and incorporating them into your consciousness as you start to like renew your mind. Whereas like the old mind was basically, the fundamental error of it is that you're a brain and a body and you're separate from God, and that you have to go out this middle earth experience separated from God until one day you die, and then you can connect with God. When Jesus clearly said, the kingdom of God is within you, and that you can connect with God now, and every moments of now, really, as you become more and more still, as you disconnect from the chatter of your mind and become more of the observer of the thoughts. Feel the emotions. Sometimes I can get pretty dark emotions, especially with what's going on in the world. Sometimes you get triggered by just unconscious people, and it's like, part of me is just like sees what's happening as a self-destruction, a very big self-destruction. People are doing this shit to themselves. So it's like, well, then there's like part of me that sometimes gets triggered and aggravated, and it's like, well, I hope you just destroy yourself then, so I don't got to deal with people like you. Which sounds cold, but I feel that way sometimes. Especially when it's just so brain dead. It's just like, how can you even think that way? Try to sit there and have some sort of compassion and understanding, but it's like, because at one point, I was completely unconscious. There was a time, I was like in jail, drinking all the time, having sex with about any chick that was like giving me the green light. It's just, I was just living that lifestyle. And like, at the same time, if you would have brought this to my awareness or attention, it would just been like, what? It's like I'm I'm happy doing these things, even though I wasn't really super happy doing them, but it felt fun. There's times there was a lot, extreme amount of fun, going out drinking, hooking up with some random chick. But then I'd always have this thing like afterwards of like fear of like, oh, what if she got pregnant? Oh, what if I got an STD? What if she says I took advantage of her? What if what if? And I was always like kind of in a weird space afterwards that last, so I'd like text and like kind of stay in contact for a little bit afterwards, maybe till like she got her period or something. It's like, okay, and then do it again and just create these the same cycles, and like that was kind of the lifestyle I was living at the time, just rocks, like want to be a rock star, and like at the same time, through that evolution, getting to now, where it's just like seeing how these things play out by just testing it, which I encourage you to test these things for yourself. Ask, believe, receive, and it's yours. Test that, put it to the test, and you'll see what's is true. And so when you do, though, start to test them, and maybe like you start getting these desires, instead of like coming up with scenarios in your mind. This was like a stumbling block for me, especially with like studying Neville Goddard, where it's like really emphasizing your imagination and the power. Basically, he was described Christ in you as your imagination, where all things are possible. And the thing about that for me, it was kind of a stumbling block, was it got me in my mind visualizing, but there was a disconnect though with the emotional states, the feeling, even though like Neville Goddard, like the feeling is a secret, and it was like obviously he was like saying how important that was, but it just didn't sink in for some reason until it did, and then it's like you get a desire to do something outside of yourself, say it's like you got a desire to, I don't know. Anymore it's just like, you just get the desire, it kind of pops in, and then put yourself in the state that it's already happened. And you can kind of change your energy, so it's like, if say you're feeling scarcity, like not enoughness, not enough money, not enough friends, not enough opportunities, not enough, that kind of scarcity. You say for money, it was a good example. It's like you feel like you don't got enough money. Well, put yourself in a state of mind that you have plenty of money. You got so much money that you can't spend it fast enough, and feel that energy. That's kind of the starting spot. So it's like anytime you get these desires, realize that your feeling is what draws it to you. So sometimes, a lot of times with unconscious things, we get fear, and then we feel that corresponding feeling and believe it's real, which then starts to draw the fear to a manifestation. But as you kind of let go of that, let go of those resistances, face the fear with God, and then start putting on the new man, which is like what I believe is where you put on the feeling state first. How would you feel if that was real? And kind of put on that identity, because God's already given it to you and it's yours already. As soon as you align to it, stop pushing it away with the resistance. And that's kind of hard to hear, because it's like, well, no, of course I want to be, say, healed, for example. Say you're dealing with pain. It's like, Mike, that's retarded that you're saying that, because I want to be healed. And it's like, if you're that triggered over the sickness, then you've made your identity around the pain, and you're strengthening it and holding it on by putting it as part of your identity. You are not pain, and you're not sickness. And so, start looking at these things that are triggering, and kind of learn to let those go. Stop making that part of your identity. Scarcity is not part of your identity. All these things are biblical, and you can get into it for yourself to start to see what your identity in Christ actually is, and the promises of God. As long as you start believing they're true, it's a process. It's like but as you start to do it more and more, so as you believe it, it starts to manifest. It starts to start to reflect that new identity. And so if it's like, let the weak say I am strong, is that kind of vibe. So it's like, start embodying who you actually desire to, because what you actually desire is love. We just don't we have these examples of it from parts of our life that we try to recreate in loops over and over again, but it's just like it's like less effective each time, and so it's, I think is the root of addiction, is just trying to recreate those patterns where at once you are happy, but the ego mind, the old man, as the Bible would describe, doesn't know what makes it happy. It just takes this experience, doesn't really know what about that experience created the happiness or the joy or the peace. More than likely it was the stillness and the connect and being in the zone, being in the moment, that, because God lives in the eternal now. So it's like the more you're in the now, the more that you're open to experiencing these metaphysical things, these spiritual things that happen all the time. Especially once you start letting go of the fear, it starts to drop the veils, and you start to see and hear more and experience different levels of reality. I mean, there's many worlds going on in this world. There's two that are really obvious. One looks like a hell. Meanwhile, the heaven is starting to manifest more and more so for the ones that are in that state of being, and as you almost start seeing this devolving thing, but ultimately we're all connected. And so, not to sit there and judge anybody or condemn anybody, especially, but like working on trying to figure out forgiveness, because as you forgive others, it comes back on you, because they're showing you an aspect of yourself that's being mirrored, through this kind of mirrored situation. But looking at that. And whenever you get these desires, say you get maybe a fear that comes in of scarcity, for one, don't believe it, and use it as some data. It's like, oh, well, there's some scarcity. I am abundant, and so I want to feel abundant. I don't want to feel scarce. I'm going to let that go. That's not who I am anymore. I'm going to put this on instead. And so ask yourself, what would it feel like to feel abundant? And then just allow God to create that energy inside of you. And as you're able to hold on to that longer and longer without resistance, as you believe you actually are abundant. I mean, there's like a period of time where you might feel uncomfortable. And there's like this transition. Maybe scarcity will emerge in your 3D, in the shadow world. But don't believe it, because it happens, pretty reliably. When you change a belief or an assumption, the resistance manifests as a situation or a person or a life experience. But walk through that with faith. And the more that you do that, the more you realize that that's how things work. And it happens faster and faster and faster. So eventually you put it on, and it's almost like you just walk into this manifestation. Or it's like when you stop caring how it happens, or you're just going after the emotion. It's like, I just... put on peace. Put on that feeling that you get when you're on vacation. Always just carry it. It's like that freedom, that joy, that, maybe that's a slight taste of it that you get to experience. Put that on. And who cares how it manifests? God will manifest it in ways that you won't even understand anyway till it happens. It's like you could never have imagined it anyway. Some of these things are so mysterious and at the same time awesome and amazing. It's like you'd be thinking about something, and then the show that you're watching could repeat it word for word. It's like, what in the fuck? I feel like I'm losing my mind, But at the same time, you start to feel more and more normal like that. I feel like more and more normal, that God responds and communicates and actually wants to help you. This is weird, but like it's like a realization thing. But as you like realize it becomes more and more concrete. As you realize who you are, you start to see who you are reflected in your life more and more so. And so definitely wanted to encourage you guys to, importantly, especially if you're in the truth community and you have like lack of hope, feeling like a slave, acting like a victim, it's convenient having a they to blame all your problems on. But I don't want to have to like rain on the party, the pity party. But you are a sovereign being, and you're powerful. And the only reason there's a they that has any type of power in your life is because you've created the they, and not only that, you've empowered them. And you become a slave to it, and so, start to drop that, start focusing your attention on God and heavenly things, and that God's in control of everything. We don't got to worry about it. We don't got to worry about how these things are going to play out. Start focusing on what you were created to do. I don't know what that is for you. You know what that is, though. So go within, start connecting with God on that and start taking action to make that realities. So many times I've been hearing people, bitching about like their job and how it's like there's all these stresses and all this stuff, and it's like, do you even like working there? And it's like a lot of times most people don't like what they're doing, and it's like, so why are you there? Why don't you do something different? And a lot of it's just fear holding people back. It's like part of the old man is that it's constantly becoming more and more a slave. So it's like when you're young, you got all these things, but then as the fear starts to manifest more and more, it's like, I just want to be safe, and you put yourself in this little box. And it's like, well, I don't want to take a risk because what if something bad happens? And then you don't take a risk, and then you just create this smaller, safe little box. But it just makes you miserable because that's not what you're designed to thrive. God said that you're a masterpiece. And so, really start taking that to heart and making moves. And as somebody who's out here, not employed, as like somebody who's created a business, I believe with God's help, because it's so easy for me to see how God provides through my customers and, through people just like that listen to the stream, through music. I get a lot of different ways that I see that playing out all the time. It was scary to not have a human being that gives me a paycheck for showing up, but at the other end of it, I'm so glad that has happened. I know that's real for anybody else. I mean, I've done literally nothing special or hard. When I was doing only music, I used a lot of force to do that, and it was miserable most of the time. It was stressful, fear, putting out one thing after another. It's just drama. Now that is chilled out. The handyman business, it's been it just flowed together synchronistically because I just started following the synchronicities and just trusting and allowing and going for it. And if the phone rings, okay, I'm gonna go do it. And it's all worked out, and you got so much abundance. You got someone helping me. I'll probably look to expand more in the spring, and continue continue this and see what happens. And you just want to share that with other people because they can just as easily experience that too with whatever desire God put in your heart to do. I mean, don't let, well, what about the money? It's like the money will come as you go for it. The connections, everything. But until you jump, that's just somebody spouting off something through a screen at you. But definitely you learn through the doing, and so I wanted to bring that up. And then also again, just the mental diets. When there's been track records of things that are triggering, like for me, it's like the media, like, and by the media I mean this is media, but with like the mainstream news, that has been very triggering for me, and it's been very triggering since 9/11. And so I'm like looking at that more and more of like forgiving that, because I realized like through like the anniversary of 9/11 that was recent. It's like, man, I've been telling myself these things for 20 years too, because I was triggered about like the Afghanistan ship, and not triggered that we left, which we shouldn't have been there in the first place. That was all founded on horseshit lies. But still got some unpacking to do with that. But like looking at that, it's like, well, I've been telling myself these things, for 20 years too, because I was getting triggered about the Republican people that were just like, whatever, really triggered by it, which then triggered me, because of a different angle on the same thing. But like, and so I was kind of realizing, man, all that 9/11 drama, all these stories I've been telling myself with that, it's like I need to forgive, forget, and move on, which I feel like the United States hasn't done that, and maybe I'm mistaken, but like it just feels like after that there's just been this shit show that's just, until there's forgiveness, I don't feel like that will be laid to rest. And so, and I don't expect like younger people that didn't even experience it to have to do that. It's like I don't feel like I had to forgive like the Japanese for Pearl Harbor, but like it's the same thing. But I'm just gonna forgive like the narratives and the media people, because I felt like so much animosity towards these narratives, and like and then like the like people surrounding me that just for some reason just wouldn't hear anything other than it's almost like oh, you trust CNN more than your friend. Yeah, there's no desire to tell you something wrong. Yeah, it's like just, but the whole thing's been a shit show, and then it leads to the COVID and everything with them, and it's like I haven't believed the news in 20 years, and so now they're saying this. It's like, why would I believe them now? Why would I trust Big Pharma now, when for most of my adult life they've shown themselves to not be trustworthy? Oh, but now you can trust them because now they have a zero liability, whatever, cocktail of something. Who knows what it is? I don't even like to use their language because it's like you're switching around definitions of things to try to be sneaky. That's another red flag, not to trust you. So it's like, yeah, so there's a lot of that kind of stuff to unpack, but it's a process, and so not to sit there and get too upset about it, because I've been on like a kind of a Twitter thing recently, where it's just, but I feel like because I was so kind of ignoring that all of it for the majority of this thing, and yeah, but I just, well, because I had COVID, so it's like I feel like as somebody and I feel like I manifested that on myself because I desired to catch it. I wanted to get it, just to get it over with, and not to say it's even real. I think my experience of it is like a lot of psychosomatic issues, especially it was what I could describe it maybe the clearest is it felt like overdosing on edibles, and like for those that haven't taken drugs, taking edibles, like weed edibles, it's like you're not going to die from it, just because they like the decades of research of trials of people just taking a shitload of these things and surviving. But like the thing with like overdosing on edibles is like, well, then you start convincing yourself it's not the weed, it's your body is actually having a heart attack. It's like, well, it's like you try to tell yourself, no, I'm under the influence of drugs. This is just the drugs. But then you have that little whisper of doubt that goes, you're an adult. You could just be having a heart attack. You could just be legitimately dying. Maybe you're having a stroke, or maybe you're having, and then you start creating all these hysterical stories, and then you start wondering, well, it's like, should I call the ambulance? It's like, and like the higher wisdom in yourself is like, stop being stupid. Don't call the cops. Don't call the cops on yourself, dumb. And like, just ride it out. You'll be okay in a couple hours, But that's what COVID felt like. It's like a lot of hysteria, and I didn't even watch a lot of these narratives because I didn't even believe that the shit was real. And you see like the stock footage, and then it's like, oh well, this turned out not to be real, and then they just they've been repeating the same storylines this whole time. It's like now you're seeing it with the vaccine and shit, and it's just like, person adamant against the vaccine contracted COVID and died. It's like, how many times you got to hear that same story over and over again before you just say, probably not real? Or maybe it is real. Every state exists. If there's some fucked up way someone could die, some human being has probably done it. It's like, haven't you ever watched that show? Was it 1,000 Ways to Die or 100 Ways to Die? I think some people on that show was like locked themselves in it was like a refrigerator and started having a fight with like powder, like chocolate powder, and suffocated. It's these kind of weird shits, but like, yeah, so I'm kind of I'm still processing, unpacking things, but this has been extremely helpful though, to start putting yourself in that state of it's already a done deal. And it's like, even though you may or may not have known that for years, continue to put that into practice, because that's really what we can experience in the present moment. Higher and higher states of feeling and states of consciousness, in oneness, you feel them, in that unity with God. It is crazy, and really, what starts to happen is it gets so intense. Then you throw up resistance, like I can't handle this. It's too much. It's too intense. Too much of a wild ride, and push it away. but then you can come back to it, so it's like this ebb and flow. And I almost feel like that's kind of a natural flow, like a cycle of oneness, and then pushing it away and coming back and pushing it away, almost sexual. But like yeah, with that being said, yeah, I don't think there's anything else other than my personal life. Business is doing good. Started a new job today. With the handyman job. Me and my guy are out doing that, and got a deck to stain later in the week if it doesn't rain. Rain today, and so that was going to plan on doing that Tuesday or Wednesday, which is tomorrow or the next day. But it rained pretty good today, and so looking more like Wednesday or Thursday. We'll see what happens. The chickens are doing good. Pretty. You can learn a lot from watching a flock of birds, especially when it comes to like people. I mean, watching people, like a lot of people just behave like animals, but like not everybody, but a lot of the unconscious behavior you see is very reflective of that. But like there's just these little dramas and these little conflicts and stuff. I'm gonna probably finish this up and go feed them, go watch them, maybe clean their cage out a little bit, their coop. And see if we got some more eggs. They've been laying about 3 eggs a day, which is not what they should. They should be laying about 6 eggs a day, I guess. But we'll see how that develops. I think I might do some new nesting boxes this weekend. And see if give them some more abundant options. Maybe if that might help get some more egg productivity. We'll find out. But like my vehicle, I got that fixed over the weekend. My wife's been driving it around. Been driving around really smooth and nice for her. Got new tires on the front, so the cords were showing, so it was time. And still got to go to the junkyard, get some more parts, but we'll see how that plays out. I got a little while before it gets cold, kind of preparing the vehicle for winter, get the furnace or the blower going for the heater, as I unplugged that because it broke, and so I got to replace that, and then other than that, I think that's about it, and so. I think I'm gonna bounce. I appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing. Appreciate your support financially and spiritually. Thank you for that. And then other than that, have a good rest of your now, and God bless.